Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cosmere Connections. We're a collective of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Eidos Domai, conniving Rolos. Glad to be back.
Nice callback.
John,
Hello.
Kay,
Hey, hey.
and I'm ReaderWarrior. And today, we have two awesome guests that are also going to be joining us. They are Alex and Griff of the Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere.
Hello, hello.
Hello, we're gonna call her Frava Bean, right?
Only if we serve
Absolutely.
it with a nice Chianti.
And today, it's going to throw me off for the entire thing now. And today we're going to be talking about Emperor's Soul, chapters 5 through 9, which will include days 17, 30, 42, 58, 59. And we're just going to jump right into it. Alex, I believe you have day 17.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for having us on. I saw that one of your last guests was Jasonian.
Yeah.
So you have come a really far way down from there. Uh, I chose chapter 5. When you said pick a chapter, I chose chapter 5 because I am obsessed with being first. So here we go. The chapter, let me paint you a scene that Sanderson did way better in the book. We open with smells wafting through the window, and our protagonist in captivity, Shy, goes, "Oh, the arbiters are trying to distract the common people by bringing up feasts that used to symbolize old celebrations to distract them. Haha." And it made me hungry. Then she talks about the journal. And this journal, poor Emperor, he wanted it destroyed after his death, which is a virus dead or alive? We don't know. Neither do we know about the Emperor. So she's reading the journal and she goes, "Oh, Galtona, is that so I only read the audio I only listen to the audiobook. Is it Galtona?"
That's the way we've been going with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Except for
Great.
Reader.
Oh, what
Well, reader reads the actual physical book, so he doesn't know
Right.
how to pronounce anything.
well that's
So,
I've read it as Gayatana.
Oh. I'm gonna
But
go
I'm
with Galtona.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all do
So,
too.
yeah,
Wait, are you telling me that?
gonna stick with.
Oh, because is it a double L? Is it two L's?
there's
No, there's
no
no
L.
L.
Why is it called Galtona in the book? In the audio?
No, no, no.
Gal.
Gal
Gal.
Tona.
Wow. See, I knew I was missing something. Great. That makes it even closer to Daytona 500. So Gautona 500 uh, pushed the Empress. I can't take myself seriously anymore. Pushed the Emperor to accept the role of Emperor. And then later in the journal, the Emperor says, "I hate him for that," which I will recollect later. Uh, and we really see this is how deep the process of forging somebody's soul goes. Uh, it's still surface level, but we're getting deeper and deeper. And then Frava Bean comes in. Uh, After a brief mention about blood sealing starting to fade each morning, right? We've gotten that once before, but now they're really starting to fade. She's picking up on a pattern. The blood sealing is super weird, and I wish we would have seen a skeletal, but we'll get there. So Frava Bean comes in and she's like, "Yo, this table you made, absolutely sick, except for this soul mark on it. That's gross." And Shy goes, "Actually, I'm pretty proud of my work," which this book won awards, right? This one the Hugo? No. What did it win?
Nebula, I think.
Nebula.
Nebula.
I like space too. It won the Nebula Award. And this is like we see in just this little Frava Beans like that mark is gross. I would have hidden it. And Shy is like, "I'm proud of my work." That's such great characterization in just this little snippet. I just want to say that. Um, and then Frava's like, "Hey, by the way, it would be great if when you soul forged the Emperor, if you could put backdoor channel for him to like listen to reason more than he normally would, say like somebody specific. And then she's like, I'll bribe you. I'll make you the queen of the smugglers in the city. And Shy goes, wow, great. Um, cool.
What I've always wanted.
Yeah, what I've always wanted. Yeah, actually, and she says the exact opposite. She's like, they really don't understand me, which is double dipping on the characterization of Shy, which great. That we need good characterization. That's how you win a Nebula. So I'm told.
It was actually the 2013 Hugo Award.
Oh, it was a Hugo.
I got it
Oh,
right
okay.
the first
Look
time.
at
So
that.
I've owned,
All
yeah.
right. Dude, Alex, you're just gonna replace me on this podcast now? Because like I don't know, I don't add anything. You like know your shit.
I was gonna go somewhere real medical and real weird with that, and I think you're doing a great job. What did okay, there's Swiggity Swoo, there's Reader, there's
I
I
just go
would
by
not
John.
you just go by John.
Yep.
And I just go by K.
Got it. I was not paying attention at the start. I apologize. I was
It's all
waiting for
good. It's all
everybody to
good.
do their little quips, and two of you did. Here we go. Right. So Shy is like, look, she tried to bribe. She's in her own head to the reader. She tried to bribe me. It's not going to work. Obviously, whatever Frava Bean makes of me, she's going to kill me eventually. And Frava Bean thinks she has now planted an idea that I should put a backdoor in the Emperor for myself, and she will simply overwrite it with her own forger. And
And I think,
yeah,
oh, sorry, just to jump in here. I think what you say about characterization is actually correct because as practical as Shy can be in some situations, you see at heart she's an idealist.
mm,
And none of at least the people in the Emperor's court seem to also be, well, not none, but very few. And I think, honestly, it kind of, not to get into spoilers, but I think it's actually a theme that runs through the book of idealism versus pragmatism.
mm, yeah,
I would
I
also
agree with that.
sorry. I'd also say a big thing about Shy is not only is she an idealist, but she is this different form of very a modern artist that's just like, this is my work, I am proud of it, even though it is not my original work. I still put the work into this. I still made it look like this. I
Well,
should be recognized for it.
but the thing about it as well is that she does make her own original work. Just because it's not original in the way that they want it to be original, like she is still creating her own original work, especially like with the table, like we see it. She is the one who added the designs to the table that were not originally there. Like she is an original artist, but they just don't like it because she's a forger.
Are you arguing that we should appreciate prompt engineers for AI?
The
How did I
engineers,
know?
yes.
We were getting to that.
I think Brandon, I don't want to get into it too much, but I think Brandon thinks that the work of creating artwork is more so the important, whilst the object that
So,
creates the art is not necessarily.
so you might say the journey is more important than the destination.
I might say that, yes.
I mean, I was kind of just thinking about how it does parallel the idea of like novelty being more important than skill to a certain extent, which is, I think that's one of Wit's parables. That's at the end of the Way of Kings,
Mm,
right?
mm, good point. I like that.
But in this case, it's kind of making the opposite argument of like, you know, it takes great skill to copy great art. And I think the Shy is like a little bit more stylish than just kind of, say, recreating a painting. It's like she's recreating a painting so they can swap it and so that you can confuse them about the scepter. You know, there's like layers to her personality, and like the characterization here is really good. Every time Shy speaks, I fall more in love with her as a character.
And I like that, oh, she has the idea of, oh, implant into the Emperor like a backdoor, a command code, or a trigger phrase that immediately like makes him susceptible to what you want. And in my mind, that's kind of what I would do. I would even program it like, oh, if I say he will only listen to me, or if I don't keep fixing it, he will die. But then they're immediately like, oh, they have a backup forger, and that's just gonna undo all of that and make it so it works for them. Like, shoot, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, I think Sanderson did a really good job with plot holes there. And he did it in such a smooth way that you're along for the ride without it being bumpy with random explanations. He deserved that Hugo. That's what I'm getting at.
And a nebula.
And the nebula. Damn it. Let's go back in time. Can we?
Let's reforge the book.
Yeah, reforge the book. Reforge the award? Is that?
No, I think reforge the book so that it won the award.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's
Yes.
just got a more stylized cover now.
Did I-
Forgers in space. No,
Well, the nebula is for science fiction, right?
I think it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Which, I mean, technically, no, let's not go there.
No,
Not going
yeah.
there.
Yeah. The distinction between fantasy and science fiction, especially when you get into something like the Cosmere, which is very hard fantasy, it starts to blur the lines a little.
A little bit. A little
Yeah.
bit.
It's science fiction. It's just not Earth science.
True.
I mean,
Okay, we're getting a little off track.
Yeah, fair.
Is that
I mean,
Not
that's
normal?
also par for the course.
It
so.
is
Okay.
normal.
let's go for bogey? No.
Birdie.
No. I meant the other way.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Just
did I-
checking.
So did I miss anything in that chapter? Does anybody wanna
No, I think
don't
you
think so.
just got about everything. The last thing I got in my notes is a second forger. Smart.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I kind of have a habit on this podcast of just calling out things I think are cool, and that was definitely one of them. Like the fact that she deduced kind of that there was a second forger, or that there must be. I thought that was really clever.
I agree. When I was listening to this chapter, I was making notes of promises, payoffs, or promises, progress, and payoffs. So we got the promise of she needs a test subject, right? Which I don't remember if she's mentioned before, but this is a really solid. Hey, Frava Bean, I need a test subject. Don't forget that. So that's a promise. We got the payoff of the journal with more progress towards getting the Soul Forge completely done with the Gautona bits. We also got some promises with the Blood Seal. There's something going on there with a little more progress. So it seems like, and it'll probably be each chapter, there is promise, progress, payoff for all the different little things going on, which is why it won the Hugo. I'm just going to keep saying that over and over.
Okay, we ready
Anybody have
for day 30?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So I am talking about day 30. So in this, so we see that we start off and Shy's been doing some updates to her room because she's like, I don't like it. It's dingy, it's gross, it's like everything's broken. So she just wants it to be better. So she's updated her chair, she's updated the table, and she has just updated the window. So she found out that she found a tiny, she kept trying to make soul stamp for the window and it kept not taking. So she eventually found this tiny little piece of colored glass in it. So she was like, oh, awesome, stained glass. And now it's worked. And now she was able to forge it into a stained glass window because that's what it used to be before it got broken. So
And we love our Cosmere stained glass.
yeah,
Very
we
true.
So she's finishing up a series of soul stamps to try out on the test subject. She doesn't know who the test subject is going to be yet, but as she finishes up, this was something that I noticed this time that I hadn't ever noticed before. So we've talked about a little bit about how in Elantris, um, we know that the magic, the aeons are connected to um, Erelon and connected to the land. It's a shape. The base aeon is a map of Erelon, and so she makes a comment that to finish off the soul stamps, not on the side that's being stamped, but on the other side, you have to draw a picture. And she's always thought that it looked like my pawn.
Dun, dun, dun.
The plot thickens.
A setting mark, she calls it.
And
Yes.
yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense considering what we know. I don't know how deep we're getting into. Yeah, that'll leave that for spoilers.
We
Yes.
know that Elantris was very much land-based, and that was why the chasm
Yes,
line and
Yeah.
and
So it seems that forgery might also be land based as well. Location based, land based.
I would hazard a guess to say that even though we don't see details about it, probably all of the different magic systems are land-based in some form or fashion.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I would bet a lot of money on that.
Well,
Lands and symbols, right?
all
Hmm.
of the Celish magic systems.
Yes. The
Yes,
solid ones.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that was cool because I had it. That's something that I hadn't actually noticed before on my previous reads of this book. I hadn't caught that. Um, so she, we get to actually see the process of soulstone hardening, which is cool. So you light it on fire, essentially. You put it over a candle, and then it gets like charred on the outside. And then when you blow it, the some of the char like comes off, but some of it stays black, and so it like a marbled black and red. Um, just kind of cool. Like gray and red.
Yeah, no, honestly, it is a neat like imagery.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so we find out that Gautona is going to be the test subject because he is about the same height as the Emperor. He grew up in the same town as the Emperor, same province as the Emperor. He's known the Emperor for a really long time, so he would be the best one. And he says that they debated on who to pick and eventually decided that he would be the best one. eh, to not inflict this on someone else. And Shai hears this and she's like, I know for a fact that the other arbiters, especially Frava, wouldn't have no problem inflicting this on someone else. This is you. This is Gautona who insisted that he be the test subject. Oh, so we're
They don't
learning.
care for the normal people.
Yeah, but Gautona does a little bit more so.
I'm reminded of Marie Antoinette supposedly saying, "Let them eat cake,"
Mm.
as the citizens are feasting. Definitely not the same situation, but that's what it reminds me of.
Well, and I mean, again, I think this goes back to idealism versus pragmatism. The rest of the court is either, I mean, pragmatism bordering on selfishness, but Gautona, as well as, um, oh God, I completely blanked. Main
Brava.
character's name.
Shy.
Oh,
Shy.
Shy.
No, no, Shy. Thank you. Wow, I
Shy
don't
guy.
know where that information went. Um, are both on more on the side of idealism than pragmatism.
Hmm.
And we do like in one of the in is it my chapter? I think they talk about how the emperor was very much an idealist at one point, but due to just life and becoming emperor, he had to stop focusing on all those tiny little details.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So we get to learn a little bit more about the soul stamps and kind of how changing a person's soul works. So a soul using a soul stamp, an essence mark, you can only change a person's soul for about 26 hours is what they say. She says they only last about a day. Um, in the best cases. Um, because your soul is always growing, it's always changing. So, in order if you want to keep reusing the same essence mark, you have to keep stamping yourself every day.
That's so like perfect, like plot convenient, kind of cool limitation on that.
Yep.
I love the limitation on
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. And what she's trying to do right now is she describes it as she's creating characters for a scroll of text that will outline the map of the Emperor's soul with these stamps. So she's gonna figure out what works, what doesn't work, and go from there and pull the character, the one little character that works, and put it into a greater stamp, a greater project outline. And
That
she,
was really cool.
yeah. So, she also does encourage Gautona to spread a rumor that the Emperor was wounded, um, just in case, because there will be conversations that she won't know about that were private conversations between the Emperor and other people that he wouldn't be able to recall because she doesn't know it. So she can't write it into his history, which makes a lot of sense. Shy is very good at forgery, at lying, at persuading people. So, and she knows people. That's the thing about Shy. Shy knows people really well. So, she tries out the first stamp on Gautona. It ends up lasting for only a minute and 5 seconds, and and she's able to, figure out a little bit. Okay, this works. This doesn't work. He reacted too angrily to her insulting the brother, but otherwise it worked really well. Um, she
That was
does,
so wild.
yeah,
Just when he's sitting there and he's like, he has these false memories of having a brother and he's like freaking out about it. And then it's like, wait a second.
yeah,
I
I
never
don't have
had a
a brother.
brother.
yeah. And Gautona keeps kind of talking down to Shy in a way. Like, not necessarily, but just like he's just like a disappointed grandfather. Like where he's like, you have so much potential. Like you could be doing so much more than this. Why like and Shy's getting a little annoyed with him.
That's a really prescient thing for an author, Sanderson, to write about. If you go listen to um, Steve Diamond and Larry Correa's podcast, which is Writer Dojo, they are crass and crude, so beware. But they have a great episode about how um, if an author is doing something that is not writing and the community calls them out saying you should be writing, that's the worst thing you could possibly say to an author, right? Like they need downtime too. And in fact, Larry Correia goes on to say that anytime anybody posts that he should be writing instead of doing whatever he's doing, he immediately stops working for the day and does not write the rest of the day. And people in his community get upset when people say that because they'll be like, "No, what have you done? He's going to stop writing for the day." Brilliant. So that was a good move, Sanderson, putting that into a book and using a character we all love to make that fact known.
I think I saw something like when you're told to do it, like if you think, okay, I'm gonna go do this thing because it could be relaxing because I can use it to clear my head, but then somebody tells you, oh, you got to do that, then it becomes a chore, and then it completely changes how you view the task in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no longer fun. It's no longer relaxing. Now it's a job.
Well,
Yep.
it's like reading for class versus reading for yourself. Even if it's a book you enjoy, if you're reading for class, it becomes work rather than just something you're doing for the enjoyment of it.
Mm.
Mhm.
I feel like you know, anyone doing art kind of needs those projects. just doing to do. Like if you're a career artist, you're gonna get kind of burnt out, like just doing commissions or whatever. Like you need to have that time for yourself. I definitely like sympathize with Shy. Like I've been doing a lot of like projects recently that are for other stuff and for my own personal stuff. And like my mom will actually say like, "Oh, you could have been like a graphic designer," And every time she says that, it's like, I know what she means is like, you could probably make money off of this if you really tried. But in my head, it's just like, well, but I like drawing Sonic or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely something to that of like the purity of doing art in the way that serves yourself and not simply chasing like monetary or fame or anything like that.
Well said. You're here.
So, yeah, so Gautona has some more questions about like how these soul stamps actually like work on a person. He's like, but I don't like I felt like I had a brother. I remembered having a brother, but I've never actually had a brother. Like, how does that work? Like, shouldn't it not work on me because I don't have a brother? Um, but Shai kind of explains that your soul knows another soul and can like identify and like associate it with it, and that your soul, like the Gautona's soul, is familiar with the Emperor's soul, similar to how like the window was familiar with the concept of stained glass.
We are all connected
So,
in the great circle of life.
yeah. So when she stamps it, it's that um it's giving the soul something that it should recognize a little bit. Um, that's why it doesn't last very long because it recognizes it a little bit for a second and then it realizes, oh wait, this isn't right, and then erases it. So, but that little bit of time is what she needs to test it to see how it works.
And I wonder
We
if
should
that has anything to do with the concept of connection. Like,
Yes, I think it
yes,
very
the
much does.
capital C connection.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we should probably talk more about it in the spoiler section, but this is a
Oh
great
yeah, absolutely.
personification of like connection and identity, which are like two
Yes.
huge things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Somebody named Kieran is about to enter.
Oh, yes. That
That's Dragon. That's
That's
our
Dragon.
fifth.
We'll see if he joins.
When he comes on the podcast, the transitions are never usually like the smoothest.
Well, you
we
now
don't-
have a
My
solid pause.
apologies.
Yeah,
You got a good pause before I said somebody's about to come in. Hello there, Dragon.
Hello there.
Okay.
Yokoso.
I'm sorry I'm so disruptive. You guys' regular
Disruptors of
ways
the
of
Cosmere.
life.
Hello, Dragon.
Hello.
Okay. So Shai tries out one more stamp on Gautona, and this one is what she thought was maybe his uh reason for becoming an emperor, which is not what she thought it was. Which Gautona tells her, he's like, no, I can tell you why he became the emperor, because he wanted to change things. He wanted to change things. That's why he became the emperor. And Shai is like, what? Like, that's not what I saw in his books. But Gautona seems really convinced about it. Uh, and they turn to talking the uh, about the painting that was discovered in her room, Frava's painting. And it comes out that so Shai swapped, so the painting in Frava's office is a fake. And Shai swapped that painting first. So she did that first before she decided to try for the Moon Scepter. The extra painting in her rooms was a decoy. um, just in case she got caught. Uh, and it comes out that what she did with the original painting was she burned it. And Gautona is really upset about this. He's like, how could you do that? That was an original masterwork. Like, he's blind now and he could never, like, he can't paint anymore. Like, what? Like, how could you do that? How could you do something like that?
With fire.
And her attitude is, what harm does it do? I painted an exact replica of the painting that is there. It's going to provide the same amount of enjoyment that people will see it when people see it. It's not harming anyone. No one knows that it's a different painting besides me and now you. So, what harm is it doing? How is it different than the original?
And it goes into like, how is it not art? People are going to view it as the piece of art. I mean, it's like if we discovered the Mona Lisa that has been sitting in the Louvre 100 years ago was replaced with a fake, but all the time people have been gawking at it, we thought it was the thing.
You didn't see that news article the other day?
No, sorry, I don't watch the news anymore.
It's funny because like even going off of what I said earlier about like just originality in art and how it still takes a lot of skill to copy something, and that has a ton of value. Like, I don't know, has this ever happened to you where you've been in a museum and you've seen something cool and old, and then you kind of keep reading the plaque and find out, oh, this is just like a recreation of it. This isn't the original. And then like the coolness of seeing it kind of dips tremendously. Like, we've all kind of felt that, right?
Well, that's the thing about it, is that so many things in museums that we have now are recreations, because oftentimes the originals are so old and they have to be in such like specific conditions that they can't be there, or it's that it's on loan, or that something else is going on so that it's not the original. But I but the thing about it is, if you didn't know that it wasn't the original, you wouldn't notice. And
But I also think
it
it makes,
wouldn't
sorry.
affect you. No, you're good. But it's like it wouldn't affect you at all.
But I think this also goes into an interesting thing about why do we value the original so much? Like as people, not just in this case, but like as people, why does it being an original or unique or old in some sense matter so much? I don't remember who it was, but there was a photographer who bought a very, very old Chinese vase, and his artwork was smashing it because back in the day, back when it was originally made, it would have just been a vase that somebody would have bought for practical purposes. It didn't have anything special about it. But because of how old it was, people viewed it as worth more.
Heck, wasn't there a thing where Banksy sold a painting and then the minute it sold on auction, there was a shredder in
Yep. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, that as
the
well
box
is
thing?
it's to unlock the frame.
Frame, that's the word.
You're
There was a
welcome.
shredder in the vein and immediately shredded it to pieces.
yeah, and it's a very similar concept of like why do we place this inherent value on things that are original or old or done by somebody with a certain amount of celebrity status? Like why do these things matter more than anything else?
Novelty makes the dopamine go woo.
See,
Mhm.
and I think about that kind
I
of thing quite a bit because I my boss's family has a not necessarily antique but real estate sort of side hustle that they work on, and you see that a lot with old buildings. And like in my mind, I'm like looking at the amount of work they're putting into one of their properties, and I'm like, just knock the thing down and build it again. Like, oldness or newness has no intrinsic value, and yet we treat things with significant amounts of either as though they are more important, more relevant, or more good than other things.
Mhm.
It makes me just a little crazy.
I'm gonna get to the end of the slippery slope and subjective reality. That's
Well, yeah. Oh,
that's-
yeah. If you want to take it to its extremes.
yes.
Yeah.
But then, interestingly, if we go on the Cosmere side of things rather than actual reality side of things,
Whoa.
would aspects like identity and connection make these old and or famous and or such things have more inherent value in some way?
Well, I mean, without going too much into it, where we're likely to dive into this more in like the spoiler
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
section for those, but it does talk about like the concept of the soul seeing itself as as a soul and having a relation, and a stained glass window viewing itself as a stained glass window, even though it was already broken, and it would rather be that. And it has this kind of inherent connection. So there is an inherent aspect of just like looking at that piece, that the age of an item and how long it has viewed itself grants it a stronger um, like ability to reconnect to what it used to be or identify with itself as itself, right? The stained glass window was a stained glass window for so long, right? And it when the window broke, it had been broken not as long as it had been a stained glass window. And so it had a stronger identity connection to itself and to other stained glass windows that it was actually really easy for her to remake and become a stained glass window. So inside the Cosmere, just taking this one snippet, we'll dig into more later, but in just this one chapter, we are given that the longer something is around, the longer it identifies with itself. So there is in the Cosmere some inherent capability of something being old and something identifying itself as an original of something that seems to grant it some sort of inherent capacity or capability.
Anything else for this chapter? Care, were you all done? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody got anything else?
Did anyone bring up the stamp looking like
Yes.
my pawn?
Yes.
Okay,
I
cool.
did.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Then I won't even touch that until we get into spoiler.
Well, I've got something. I think it's really disturbing how the stamp sinks into the skin and then she turns it.
Yeah,
There's
that kind of.
a little nice piece of horror right there, right in the middle of
Yep.
the story.
Yeah.
That's why it won the Hugo.
There's there's internal consistency between this and other things in the Cosmere
Yes.
with that. But that's, I guess, spoilery stuff because we haven't talked about those things yet. So I guess more on that later if you're going to stick around.
Okay. Day 42. Shai remembers the lesson of Teo, her first forger teacher, taught her. Shai remembers the lessons that Teo, her first forger teacher, taught her, and how he spoke of the complexities inside of each person. The best forgers are the ones that know their marks and respect them, so their forgeries can stand right in front of them but never be noticed. And so Shai had begun to construct a biography of Emperor Ashravan and his life, a true historical record. She could see that he was an idealist long ago, but the weight of his life had turned his focus elsewhere. There wasn't one moment, but dozens that led to these choices. Shai wasn't creating a doll of key events, but a man of hundreds of decisions, and it drew her to work harder than ever before. She wanted to succeed, to place a forgery, a human one, on the throne of the Rose Empire without anyone ever knowing. But her pride was her weakness, and she needed a backup plan. Disguised was an escape journal that listed the blood sealer's schedule. Some days he ran late, smelling of alcohol, and she had also begun to talk and befriend the strikers as they were becoming bored watching her for the past 40 days. She couldn't use a soul stone to escape, as testing one on herself would be disastrous and reported upon. Instead, she would have to trick them without forgery.
Seeing her own wits.
Psychology.
So pretty cool, kind of tying like a little bit what she's doing with the Emperor to kind of everyone else around her. She's not just learning who the Emperor was, she's working on all the people around her, trying to figure them out and feel for if she has any leverage, because she doesn't trust that they're going to hold up their end of the bargain, really at all.
The Emperor, she knows is the comment she's fixing. Frava just wants to consolidate power, gain control over the Emperor. Uh, the guard, I can't remember his name, just wants to kill her.
Zoo.
Zoo?
Zoo.
Zoo? Zoo?
Zhu, I
Zoo?
think.
Zoo.
How's it spelled? Spell it.
ZU.
ZU.
Okay. Zhu wants to
Yeah.
kill her. Like the only ones that really stump her are like Gaetana and the Blood Sealer, which we're getting some bits on the Blood Sealer, but like nothing on
Right.
Gaetana.
Yeah, and we get more of those bits inside of 48 as well for like actual motivations. On 42 itself, I find it kind of interesting also the insight we get on Shy and just like her own like introspections about like for how like forgers are greater than simple thieves, right? She could go like this simple con route, but she's like trying to like stop herself from being prideful, but like swelling at the idea of being like, A, forgery is like more of a permanence, and B, like what forger has been able to place a forgery on the rose throw like the imperial like on the rose throne itself, like and anyway, and then she's like trying to hold herself back, but it's just interesting to see like she's very, very proud of her work and like what she does and who and like who she is. And so it's just like a kind of a great fun insight that I find inside of that chapter.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, we got a lot of progress in this chapter. Not very many payoffs, and not very many promises, other than like we got the stakes now, her personal stakes. Both we already knew she needs to escape. There's a chance
mhm.
that by the end of the story she might not need to escape if she does everything correctly. But come on, it's Shy. She needs to escape. But besides that, doing this is her single her most important goal. And that really laid it out in this chapter.
And
And that's why
she
it's won the Hugo.
and she really wants to be the person who accomplished the impossible. Like she desperately likes being the type of person who can do something that's impossible, that people thought was impossible. She cannot back down from a challenge.
She
I
wants to
think
be
that's
the very
incredibly
best.
cool. Yeah, than no one ever was.
No one ever.
No, but she wants to do it just to do it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Anything else for 42?
I've heard it's a pretty popular number, but beyond that,
Hmm.
It carries with it great meaning.
About the life, the universe, and
Everything.
everything.
John, I believe you have 58.
I do. So Frava, who is by this point quite detestable, visits Shy and comments on how Shy has been making changes to everything and doesn't appear to be working very hard, which kind of hits back on what we were talking about before with, the taking the break and the clearing of the mind thing. Um, which is exactly what Shy tells her. It helps her to be relaxed and to focus if she has a decent space around her, which totally makes sense. Um, she then kind of talks about the specific tweaks that she's made to the room and goes on to explain how her soul stamps will work on the Emperor and that it's not a single stamp, but it's a collection of many, many stamps that work together to create the sort of change that it would take to emulate a soul, so to speak. Um, Frava is not impressed at having to have the Emperor stamped every day and to have to carry around that metal plate, um, saying that, oh, it's hard for a person to have a normal life. And Shai's like, being Emperor makes it hard for a person to, have a normal life, which
Fair.
again is very truthful, very fair. Like, now that you mention it.
Not to mention, it's like, what's your alternative? Like, what's
Yeah, right.
it's not like there's another option here.
You do this or you don't have your emperor. Like, this is where we are.
I love how sassy she is. She's constantly back talking these people that are like basically about to execute her because she knows that she's the only hope they have.
Right, right.
She's like,
Um,
and so Gaotonic, you mean head person, the old
the old man. Yeah. But faced with Frava's disappointment, Shai kind of gives her this sort of little nugget of, well, potentially, maybe, sort of, kinda, he might eventually not need it, if you do it enough times, it kind of takes on that imprint on its own, and his body, spirit, whatever, will kind of potentially learn the stamp and not need it so frequently or at all anymore. Um, and she compares it to the lower pages on a stack of paper that you're writing on. Um, Frava kind of just goes, "Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna make a copy of this," and snatches up the book of notes, and she's like, "I need that." And Frava's like, "Yeah, all the more reason to have it copied." But Shai is onto her. Shai's like, "Yeah, you're just gonna see if it's far enough along that your secondary, your crony, your backup forger can finish the job, and you can just off me without having to follow through on anything you've promised." Um, and and I missed the bit where Zoo is like, Shai objects to the having the pages taken, and Zoo's like, "I'm gonna stab you if you move." Um,
He was so ready to stab
he
her all
was
the time.
all about it. He was just like, "Ooh, just
Give
breathe
me a
wrong,
reason. I want to
right?
do it.
Sneeze so much as once." Um, but Frava, backs him down and puts him back on his leash. Um, Poor Captain Zoo, like, we really don't see anything other than attack dog mode of him. Like, he's such a small but like kind of essential part of this that we don't really see much of him other than, "I kill you."
Heal you.
um so as she's leaving, Frava's kind of like, "Oh yeah, and have you thought about that other offer?" And Shai says that she will take the deal and do the thing. But she knows that Frava's really just gonna be looking over the notes to see if somebody else can finish it, and she's never gonna get anything out of Frava. So, and that's where the day kind of comes to a close.
I
And
mean, I got
she
a couple
kind
of
of,
things.
I do want to say,
Sorry.
she kind of just agrees to, Shai just agrees to what Frava, like, wants her
Oh
to
yeah,
do, just, like, to keep Frava from killing her, because she knows that if she doesn't agree, then Frava has even less reason to keep her alive.
I gotta say, it's good on
Yeah,
Frava to like bring it up at this point because she's like, "Oh, did you think about it?" And Shai's like, "Yes." And so that means, oh, so in this notebook is the work of that. And now that I'm gonna have my forger take a look at it, maybe we'll have that info and we can just jump straight to that part.
I do like that Shy made her notes, like the way that she wrote her notes was intentionally vague and intentionally confusing to emphasize the fact that, hey, this is a really big project. You don't want to have to do this.
Very smart.
I also
Okay.
think it's really smart of Shy because, like, back onto Shy being able to read people, she obviously knows that Frava thinks that everybody is as selfish and power hungry as she is. And so she's playing on that to personify that, even though she has no intention of inserting that back door.
Yeah, you see yourself in others reflected. And some of the writing advice I've seen recently is that you really should have your characters see themselves in other characters. and I'm gonna say that's why Sanderson won the Hugo for
Oh
this.
my God.
Jeez.
At the
I
at the at the end of this, Swiggity, when you're going through and to
Make a
Just put a
counter.
little
edit this, you
counter.
should do a little counter every time the Hugo word gets mentioned.
The Hugo Award drinking game with Cosmere
Please, no.
Connections.
How many
Don't wanna
times did we
kill people.
say Hugo Award in one episode?
Well, we just said it like 5 times just creating this idea.
I know, exactly.
Whatever
Um,
alcohol you're gonna use, you need to dilute it.
Yeah, or just use beer. Like,
I was gonna go straight for the Horn-Eater White, but
um, back
I've-
into the chapter.
I have
Sorry.
3 things that relate to this chapter. So we're going right back in. The first, what John said about it making sense for work being done in like a clean, nice space. You listening to this episode right now, you may have an opportunity to clean the space around you and feel better about yourself while you're listening to the rest of this episode. Do it. Do it. If somebody's like, "Why are you doing that?" You say, "Alex said so." The second thing I'm going to mention is that Zoo seems to be the dirt with which Sanderson is filling plot holes. Like, really not there for anything else. So I'm double dipping on what John said. Like, he's only there to be stabby, stabby, threaten the death.
I like it more so that he's actually got a name and he's got somewhat of a character. It could literally just be random guard
That's
or
true.
the guard or a guard or it could
And
be a completely different
it
person
could
each
be,
time.
but his rank is actually slightly important because it tells you that Zoo is, or I'm sorry, not Zoo, Frava has more control over the guards than the other arbiters do, right? Otherwise, why else would the captain be there personally? And we
Mm,
also hear that the captain has taken a personal vendetta here earlier on, because he found out that Shai stole the moon scepter in that painting right out from under his nose, and he didn't know it.
mm,
So he does have a little tiny bit of motivation of his own, beyond just, being a hook.
he does. He does,
I
and
like
that's
that.
why this won the Hugo Award. The third thing is
take a drink.
the third thing is that okay, I know that soul stamp, like a soul stamp that changes something drastically, would not stick for very long. But if somebody unknown to you was stamping you with something small enough that it lasted for a day and they kept doing it over without your knowledge, they do it while you're asleep. Let's assume that you don't feel anything. It's not like a little tickle. It just doesn't feel like anything. I find that also to be horrifying. I don't know,
So
like.
There was a
she
line.
she mentioned that in my chapter, that like the ideas that she's like taking for like figuring out how to do this, how to make a soul stamp for someone else, is based on these like horror stories that people have told about that, about people like being stamped without their knowledge.
There you
Like
go.
stamped
like
on the bottom of their foot in their sleep or something. Was the
Yeah,
line.
something like that. And
Super
it's
horrifying.
yeah.
Yeah, it is honestly. And it kind of goes back to that whole thing about identity, which is, I mean, I'll delve more into that on the spoiler side of things, but it is a little bit horrifying to think that somebody might have control over who you are, even in a small way.
Yeah. It was like, here's the thing about it, about that is like it would have to be small enough and it would have to be a plausible enough change for you
Mm.
Right.
not
Well,
to
and didn't she
notice.
specifically say in that section about stamping someone's foot is like that's not how it worked, basically? Like people talk about it, but she kind of speaks about it in like a disdain of like this, like they tell like these horror stories basically it's not I don't know, I'm trying to find the exact page and location so I can like read it, but the impression to me was like this isn't how it works. These are like kind of like these far-fetched fairy tales, but it does make you wonder like how close would you have to get, and if that point, if you're that close to altering someone that's already alive, is it actually making enough of an impact that it would actually even change their behavior? But
It's a
I
And
good
don't
I
know.
mean,
question.
I think that, yeah, because I think in similar vein or somewhere else she goes that the only reason the stamp that she's creating would work is because she's trying to recreate the emperor and then stamp the emperor. Like it would not work on anyone else to forge them into the emperor longer than a few minutes like it does with Gautona. So
Yeah, it's like it's all about plausibility. Like with like going back to the example of the window. Like she kept trying to forge the window as a regular window. So, like, you have to have, but it wasn't working because the window didn't want to be a regular window. So, you have to have that plausibility. You have to have the soul has to want whatever change you're doing to it.
I could picture this being commodified.
Mm,
You know, we'll stamp you every morning to help you stop smoking, to help
Jeez.
you want to work out, whatever it is.
that's
yeah, that'd be
cool.
interesting. Though, I
Yeah.
mean, to be fair, you could even go it further and make it something like, oh, with people with executive function disorder due to whatever mental illness.
My comment about this chapter is that she seems to imply like the creation of soul stamp Bluetooth, in that she can stamp it and then link it to the plate that he'll have to keep around him.
Yeah, so the stamp that she will make is isn't the actual like blueprint. It's just a like connection to the plate. It's a
Can you
link
guys
to
hear
that
me
plate.
now?
We
Yes.
Yes.
There
can.
he is.
Okay, fantastic. I don't know what happened with my earbuds there, but for some reason, even though I could still hear you guys, the microphone lost connection, and I'm not entirely sure what happened there.
Speaking of
Sorry.
Bluetooth,
However, to finish my thought, or at least to finish my thought on your guys' end, I was saying that they could use stamps to as basically as a treatment for mental illness or whatever to change that small thing that the person wants changed and might even feel about themselves, but isn't expressed externally.
I,
if it if it was determined that it was like a single thing that caused that, uh, yes. However, I'm just
yeah.
gonna say two words: childhood trauma. So
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that it would work on everything. Like,
yeah,
CPSD, obviously, probably not. But if it's like executive function disorder from something like ADHD, you might be able to treat that one single symptom, if not the entire thing.
We
I would
also have to remember with these soul stamps is that they are very specific to the individual person. Like, you can't use a soul stamp on one person and then have it work exactly the same on a different person because your paths are not the same.
mm,
So, like, with this, like, idea of, like, commodifying soul stamps, like, I don't, I just, like, it wouldn't be very realistic considering how much time and effort you would have to go into. Like, we see how much effort, like, Shy is getting into just change, like, one, like, tiny little thing about someone's soul.
okay.
Well,
One way
that
I would, sorry.
that might. I'll save that for spoilers. Sorry.
One, okay, let's try to move on to the next chapter. But one way I would see it is not necessarily it affects the symptoms, but maybe it makes it so, oh, early in my life, I went to go get help. I went to go see a therapist, and now I have a greater control on that
Hmm.
present day. Sort of the same way, like, oh, the table was taken care of, so now it looks nicer.
Hmm.
My only note for this chapter was that, like, I wonder if this is what it's like to be an engineer. You got management coming down. Oh, what are you doing? You need to get working on this project. And then, the whole time you're like trying to make it seem like, oh, easy. I'm the only one who can do this. She's writing this, and we'll get into it, I guess, in my chapter. If you want to just, I can just transition into that.
Roll right in.
In my chapter, she begins, having a sleepless night, basically sweating over the fact that they just took her notebook and are possibly going to replace her with the other forger if they can figure out as far as she's gotten. But what she's done is, as she's writing the book, she's basically, they call it forging her tone. She's making it sound like everything she's doing is really dangerous and complex, which it kind of is, but she's like playing it up essentially. And that is her only hope right now, because otherwise they basically have all the work she's done, and it seems like they're not super happy that she's just been forging her room, and there's a chance this could all end right now. She comes to the conclusion too that like the Emperor slowly kind of started to morph, like as opposed to just having one thing kind of click into place with him. She comes to this realization that like it was more of a gradual change. Like he started out kind of wanting to change things, and then over time he eventually like just kind of got complacent. She's starting to think. And I really like that section where it talks about like where it compares it to like getting off a trail. You know, you start to kind of dip your toes into a new philosophy, and before you know it, you're not sure where you wound up. And I also like that they kind of show like she's getting a little bit closer to some of the guards. They're like asking her like, "Hey, is this light too bright? How you doing, Shy?" But she dives back into her work, mostly just to pass the time. And eventually, the blood sealer shows up late, which sounds like foreshadowing, if you ask me. And Frava arrives as well, basically
Excuse me,
saying,
doesn't he show up early?
In this one, he
"Yeah,
shows
he
up
actually is
late.
early.
I thought he showed
No,
up
he
late in
is
the
early.
second.
Oh, you're
It was
right.
my
You're right. No,
mistake."
you're right. He shows up early and he rushes off. So I remember the rushing piece. You're right. He
Yeah.
shows up early and he rushes off. And in a previous chapter in this section, she actually mentions um, that some days he arrives late and some days he arrives early, and she wants to figure out why. So then at this point we have another instance of him showing up early and then rushing off.
Okay,
So
so she's trying to figure out why
is that
some days he's early.
does that sound right? For
Yeah.
everyone? Okay, cool. Just making sure that I'm remembering that right.
Sorry, I was debating whether or not to quote my favorite Kelsier line about being late.
If you had of, that's why it would have become I'm just kidding.
So yeah, she gets her book back. The scribes are done. Get back to work, Frava says, and then leaves angrily. And that's pretty much it. She's safe for a few more weeks at least.
Okay. To what you were saying about from an engineer point of view, 100% I have been on the other side of this. And if somebody was like, "Hey, I've got this person working on this thing. Do you think you can fe work on it?" And I saw a mess of code, I would not even hesitate. No, sorry, I am way too busy. This ne needs to go back to the person. Mm-mm.
Right. I'll start from scratch or just have them finish it.
Yeah, it would be starting from, or just, copy paste into
Yeah.
ChatGPT and says, "Analyze this."
Rather than trying to code someone else's crazy notes.
Yeah. Luckily for Shy, Frava did not have my pawn GPT. So
Uh, That's how I've been viewing like all of this. When she was talking about like, oh, signatures should be loud and proud, and I'm like, I know coders who would absolutely agree with this. This whole thing with the soul stamps is now just in my mind. This is just code. I am now doing Unity projects in this book. This was supposed to be my break from
Oh,
Unity.
that's it. It's interesting that you're saying that the soul stamps are like coding, because I think when we were talking about Elantris, we were talking about how that's kind of similar as well.
well, I mean, if you
But
think
the
about it,
Aeons,
right, and so he specifically talks about how the Aeons was based from the idea of coding, but I mean, that idea has rooted itself in the entire magic system of Cell is the fact that everything has a very like script based like physical aspect, and it's like each piece has like a key, right, because like we learned with the Aeons, it's like this is like the root Aeon for this, and then you have your all your additives, but you have a similar like process, right? You're talking about this has the key for which links it and basically says, go look at this other piece of code on this metal plate, right? And that metal, right? And it's like this stamp like ties together 12 stamps, and then that's all like talked about in this little section. And so I do think like on both sections, like the whole thing has been very much like code inspired.
And I would put it in like two different areas. One is they're different programming languages, but also Aeons were very much creating something out of nothing. Like here's Fireball, here's a thing happening. While soul stamping is very much rewriting what something is. So that's taking what one is creating code and making an effect. This one is rewriting code to change a current effect. The thing about Shai's whole situation is that she's having to use her edit code aspects to create an effect. She's having to basically do what Aeons are doing through soul stamping.
So she's more like a modder.
Yeah, that would be a better interpretation of forgery. But she's having to actually make it through modding.
No, she's creating a whole new game. They're modifying something that's already crashed.
Um,
The guards in this chapter paint a great contrast to Zoo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's another reason for Zoo's existence, is just for that contrast.
That is very true.
No, that's very Zoo.
That too.
Very Hugo.
I was gonna wait a little bit, draw them out, make them keep guessing, and then right when they
I was
think they're
waiting for it.
free, right when they think they're free, boom, sponsored by Sprite. That's why it won a Hugo.
okay. Anybody have anything else for this chapter set?
Other than just, this is a really cool book. Like, it's funny because we often read something and like I think either we're gonna get like really bogged down in the weeds of it, or we're gonna like not have a lot to say. It seems like there's almost never a happy normal. It feels like on the show. But with this book, it's like it's so short compared to the normal Sanderson stuff, and yet we have so much to say. Like it's a very personal book, and it's a very philosophical piece, and yet at the same time, it's like super focused. Like I'm just really liking going through it.
That's probably
Yeah.
why it won the Hugo Award.
Good.
We're all stealing Alex's thunder here.
Well, now it's our thunder.
I will say
That-
though that I think it's a good point where this is almost like a regular Sanderson novel distilled down into like its essential elements.
Which is true, which is an interesting thing because Brandon is not known for his brevity. Um, and so I find it's I think it's hilarious because actually someone one of my friends' wives brought it up. We were talking about the Emperor's Soul and like how good is and like how like just like impactful and how much he got done inside of a short like writing and then as it writing it as like a little tiny novella. And she's like, wait, so are you saying that he can write a good book in a shorter amount of space? And my friend just like started like trying to defend, and I was just like, actually, it's a really good point. Like Brandon
Yeah, but
always
when he
talks about
does, he
how he
wins
can't
Hugo
write
Awards.
things like he can't. He talks about how he can't write things that are short, and yet he proves himself wrong with his own writing, which is why it won a Hugo Award. Like, no, truly, like in an actuality, likelihood is because it became such a powerful short that and he was able to concentrate all of his, like, everything that he does into such a small amount of area. It lit like in actuality, not just as a joke, I think that truly is why it actually won the Hugo Awards, because he was able to deliver the amount of world building and the impact and like the emotional investment that happens in like literally we talk about and we joke about, oh, this chapter is so long, ha ha ha, it was 4 pages, and then we wax on for 10 minutes about how emotionally impacting it is. Like it really is incredible, but also proof that he can write a shorter book if he wanted to.
I think it's
Yeah.
more so he doesn't have any room for all the Hugo Awards that, because like look at how fast he writes a normal book. If he really wanted to get out how many hundreds of books this size in a year,
It comes down, I mean, for anybody who is legitimately thinking, oh, he can write a good story and it very short, it comes down to the story he wants to tell. And he's definitely in a spot where, yeah, he should listen to editors. Yeah, he does have to pay attention to size limitations of books. But
Eventually.
beyond that, like Honey Badger don't care, right? Like he
Yeah.
can do whatever he wants. It's the story he wants to tell. So
Well, I also think it depends on how complex you want the story to be. Don't get me wrong, this is a fantastic book, but if you look at this book compared to, say, Stormlight Archives and the amount of different stories that are interconnected in the Stormlight Archives and the different points of view it covers, I don't think he could have told that story from one point of view and had shorter books with the same effect.
I mean, for the most part, this book is what would normally be called on like Star Trek, like a bottle episode. It takes place in one room. That's about it. Everything else is just
Yeah,
characters.
And it's not just the length of the story, like it's also just kind of everything. Like the magic system itself is very personal and kind of emotional and nostalgic. Like there's a lot of Sanderson magic that just amounts to like, yeah, but what if you had basically superpowers? And this is like super intimate and focused in a way that like we don't always see.
Okay. Well, next time we're going to be covering the final 5 chapters of the main book. So that'll be days 70, 76, 85, 97, and 98. The epilogue, day 101, will be saved for our final recap episode. But for now, it is time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, well, we've been over Elantris already, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here because it is likely that we will talk about everything and anything. If you're up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. You can find us at CosmereConnectionsPod@gmail.com, at CConnectionsPod on Twitter. We even have our own Facebook group. We would love to hear from you. But it is where we're going to part, and my name is ReaderWarrior, and I've been joined by Swiggity Swoo,
A Nebula and a Hugo.
John,
Don't let the Hugo hit you in the backside on the way out.
Kay,
Did we mention that this book won a Hugo Award?
and Dragon.
Everyone's just trying to get people to drink because of the Hugo.
And of course, we had 2 amazing guests, Alex and Griff. Would you like to shout anything out? Maybe a podcast you guys happen to have?
yeah, we have podcasts. Actually, we haven't
But have those
uploaded to one of
podcasts won
those in
Hugos.
Yeah. Yeah, we're the Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere. We talk about everything Cosmere. Episodes come out sporadically as I navigate my own mind, and sometimes we're sponsored by fake sponsors. And no, wait, I had something better. Hold on. No, I didn't. Oh, right, that was it. Also, in addition to all the comments and likes and subscribes you're doing for what Reader said, ReaderWarrior, you should also comment if you actually did clean once I told you to. And I will be checking the comments. And if I remember, which I probably won't, I will shout you out in our podcast. So then you can go like and subscribe over there.
Also, we'll be checking your work, so
Yeah.
do it good. No,
post
just
photos.
no scooping stuff under the bed.
Yeah. We were,
Vacuum, dust, everything.
we also more legitimately, we were just on the Sandbox's channel on YouTube. He's another content creator that does Cosmere stuff. And we were on there with Raffo, Steve, the Cosmonaut. I don't know which name he goes by. But we were talking about theory crafting for post Wind and Truth. So I know your listeners just finished with y'all going through Wind and Truth. So there's another video over there that you could go bounce around, get ideas, listen to us wax poetically.
Steve
Thanks
is
for having us
great,
on.
by the way.
Yeah.
That guy's so cool.
He is very cool. He's very cool. We ran around Nexus with him one morning getting stamps before the exhibit opened.
Me and Reader stood in line for like half an hour to get his stamp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that dude
Dang.
was busy. Everyone was at his
Yep.
and I'm sure yours too. It was pretty crazy
Oh,
in
I'm
there.
sure. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't recognize you because I had long hair.
well, don't forget, there's always another connection. Bye. Okay. And we're back. Spoilers. Okay, day 17. So, Shy. Shoot, I don't even know where to begin. I got a lot of notes for these chapters.
Go through them real
Oh
fast.
my goodness.
Just speed read.
I love that even knowing what memories Ashraven wanted to relive is important to this process. And like knowing just what
Yeah, we didn't
pages are
mention
more
that
critical.
fact that like we didn't mention that. The fact that like the pages are like super worn in this journal
Oh,
that
yeah.
he was reading because he'd been rereading it. He wrote it for himself to reread.
That is true. We
Uh,
did not mention that.
Oops.
It's okay. I didn't think about it until Reader just mentioned it, so obviously it wasn't something that stuck out.
I wrote so much for these things. It's honestly just a whole bunch. You've got great. Now I just got Fama Beans in my head. Fama Beans shows up and asks if she can make that back door again, code reference to allow her to manipulate the Emperor when he's all quote unquote fixed.
Wait, how do you spell her name?
Brava, Frava.
Oh, okay.
Rob. Yeah.
Got it. That's how I was
Um,
spelling it in my head. We're good.
and I love that Shai is incredibly smart, but still has the moral decency, not to make a person a slave of their own soul.
Good job, Shy.
We love it when people are like good humans.
That's about
So,
all I got
wait,
for 17.
wait. This is spoilers for everything in the Cosmere?
Yes.
It can
Everything's
be, but
open.
try
We
to.
also like it when people are horrible people like Dalinar.
But then they'd be good.
Or Kelsier.
Are trying to, yeah.
And then they are not good, and so people still like them because they started off cool.
Because they're bad boys.
Yeah. Yeah, that. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I derailed.
No worries.
Speaking of opening up the piece around hold on, I'm opening up my notes, but opening up as far as like looking into across like the like full Cosmere knowledge, because the chapters that really encompass talking about like the spiritual realm, I do find very interesting, because it talks like a lot about like the soul fighting the rewriting of like, right, like the soul stamp was like smoking red, and it's like it itself is fighting the rewriting of itself, which then
This
just
is
like Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, sorry, you were talking about it fighting, and it just reminded me of like it being rewritten of like when Yasna talks about soul casting people.
That's
I was
exactly what
just
I was
about to
gonna
bring that
say.
up.
Okay,
I
yeah,
was
look, we're on the
Yeah.
same page. We're on the same wavelength.
all of us. Yeah, there you go.
I wasn't getting there.
And so I wonder if the soul
All the people
stamps
that
am
would
would
a
matter
actually
stick.
were
work.
on the same page. Um,
I wonder if the soul stamps would work even less on somebody that's highly invested.
oh,
Probably.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think because that's the thing is like the more so invested someone is, the more resistant that their soul is to the investiture that gets imbued inside of them. We already have evidence of that in, I mean, just about every other major series. Um, but you also have
As-
to think it's also about willingness as well. Like it's not just the investiture that is put into them, because we also think about what we talked about last time, which is a soul stamp, in a sense, piercing all three realms when it's stamped and twisted. So it's not just putting investiture into that body, but it pierces all three realms. So if someone is, particularly if someone is willing, right, you've got an aspect of um, like their intent is now helping it go move along, and so I think that wouldn't then be resistant to someone like someone who's willing, would their investiture would almost be more accepting of it. I don't think it would resist it as much because we all do see Shy turn herself into an Elantrian inside of the
would
Lost
a
Metal.
would a
Hmm.
feruchemist that has emptied themselves of identity be easily susceptible to a soul
And see,
stamp
I was
then?
actually going to consider that
I
myself
would,
because, like, I wonder if the soul stamp would even have anything to grab hold of.
yeah, that's what I
Right.
was gonna say. I was
It
like, I think it might be the opposite because if your soul doesn't have an identity, like, would a soul stamp even be able to change anything?
I think it could go either way because you could say it has less identity to try to resist the change, or you could say it has I think it's almost a to a do how much, like, what is the strength of the ferruchemist and how much are they able to store inside of the metal, and how pure is that metal that they're storing, and how large of a thing, because if they're able to store, literally empty themselves completely of identity, then there's nothing for the soul stamp for it to like see in a history to rewrite. But if it's only, I think, a partial amount, then it's like it's easier to change because that identity isn't trying to resist the change itself. So I think there's going to be almost like a degree of like certain level
Okay,
of that.
to kind of uh, counter this, well, counter it to an extent, I actually think that it'd be interesting if, because we know that identity and connection are like while they may be somewhat, there may be some crossover there, we do know they are inherently separate things. So could somebody that has a connection to somebody else and drains themselves of identity be stamped into a copy of a person they're connected to, in the same way that the soul stamp is working on Gautama to a certain extent because of the connection he has to the Emperor?
If the person can be convinced they are, then I would say yes. But I would think like you store entity, but like it immediately starts to pick up because you're not assuming they're not like constantly, getting rid of their identity. Like if they look in a mirror, they're immediately going to have some self of this is what I am. So like I would say possibly it would be easier that way until they have something to contradict it.
Well, if your mind is telling you one thing, it doesn't matter what you see. If your mind interprets it in different fashion, just looking into reality, people like body dysmorphia is all based on the mind's perception of yourself, no matter how much reality may contradict what you actually see inside of a mirror. So
And
if
there's
their
also an
mind is
interesting thing.
so tricked that it to a point that it wouldn't even matter if it's like past a certain level.
Would
Minimally,
it
yes.
overwrite their initial identity if they were stamped with a low enough of identity and not given a See, the soul stamping is a really difficult one because it rewrites so much of a person. And hmm.
But because the soul is always growing and changing, it can only last for so long.
Correct.
It seems like we moved
But
on to chapter 30, so we're going to continue with chapter 30. Um,
sorry, I am a big fan of the hard magic system and the way that different investiture techniques interact. So
You're perfectly fine. I just know if Kay and Dragon get into it, we could be here for another 3 hours. And with
Griff, you're
you,
in good
oh
company. Let's
boy.
just say that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you and me and
I
Kay were all on the same wavelength when it came to talking about this form of investiture and how it affects connection and identity. So
Yeah.
So Shy has changed the window because she found out there's always another secret. The setting mark is a map of my pawn. Um,
Yeah, which is cool. So that was, yeah, as I said earlier, like that was something that I didn't catch previously, which I was like, oh,
well,
cool.
yeah,
me
which
So,
just
too.
brings back to the
oh,
thing that we talked about, which is like each symbol is based around the location and why the moon scepter being so critical of being able to change what the root symbols are based around to be able to translate basically using
mm,
stuff that's based from my pawn
hmm.
soul stamps to be able to use soul stamps with like based with an Elantrian base or with a
So
um,
here's the question.
etc.
So we know that Shy uses soul stamps on Scadrial.
Is
Well, so
her
I think
setting
the
mark
fact that
still?
she uses soul stamps on Scadrial is the same way that she is able to use Elantrian magic on Scadrial when she becomes an Elantrian, which is it seems to be based off of making the initial mark a map of the area
Yeah,
that you're in, because she gives or who sh shoot, who's Shy with in Lost Metal?
Marasi.
Marasi.
It's
Yeah,
Marasi.
Marasi gives her a symbol to draw that seems to allow Elantrian Shy to use Elantris magic even though she's on Scadrial.
Yeah.
Correct, which we see also in the Emperor's Soul or in Tress of the Emerald Sea. You see the witch um,
Right.
be who she
Yeah.
has a map, right? It's she's like bring it to the world or whatever, and it's like literally there's a map of the world which centralizes her magic where she is.
So I
So
would
the
assume,
interesting thing about, sorry, go on.
I was just going to summarize too. So we assume that a setting mark that she uses while in the Lost Metal is of Scadrial.
So would she
Probably.
then? Okay,
That was my
I,
that was gonna be my that was part of my question was then do we think that that setting
I would,
mark would
Well,
be of
so
Scadrial?
the difficulty thing about that is the fact that we know that the reason that Celian magic is location specific is because of the fact that the splinters of devotion and dominion were pulled from the spiritual realm into the cognitive realm. And the
correct.
cognitive realm is somewhat location dependent on the planet that they're on. And
Correct.
so my curious question is, how are they accessing door on
Well,
Scadrial, even
well,
if if they're using a mark of Scadrial, or is it tapping into the natural investiture of that planet rather than the energies of devotion and dominion?
so with
we
the
argue this quite a
Elantris,
lot in the
so
Landships.
we so
That
with the Elantrian magic, we I do remember for a fact that she used the unkeyed door,
Purified.
the purified
No,
door.
I'm going to argue with you there because she doesn't. She uses that to turn into an Elantrian, but I don't believe she uses it as an Elantrian.
I think we also discussed the possibility that at some point she made a router Aeon of Scadrial there that connects in the same way that the
The wires
Elantris.
did, and the wires did for the fortress, the Kelsier visits of the oh, what was that group called? That in
Irie.
Secret
Irie,
History. Yeah, the
the
Irie
Irie.
use. Like they obviously have cables going off apparently back to cell at least to
They
pull
they used a
door.
landline. I think geez,
Yeah, no,
it's
so
all computer science.
I could absolutely see Shy creating some sort of more of a Wi-Fi modem.
I
Hold
think
on.
yeah.
And
Um,
okay,
wait, no, if sh- going back to the use of the unkeyed Aeon whatever, is it the Aeon door?
yeah.
The
Purified
unkeyed
Yeah,
door.
door,
the
yeah.
yeah, the unkeyed
Unkeyed door.
door.
Right.
Purified door.
Because that's not confusing for people that are in
Mhm.
construction. Um, a lot of my doors are unkeyed because I haven't put the handles back on actually.
Gosh
And that was a
darn
bad
it.
joke. Um, if Shy, okay, at the end of Emperor's Soul, which I have not read in a long time. I only read these chapters up until these chapters. She uses her essence mark to just change herself, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
She
So
just like, boom, done.
just boom, done. Right. There's
Yep.
there's the investiture used to make the essence mark work was not some sort of significant source that she had to draw upon. It was uh it was specific. It was incredibly difficult to make the essence mark, right? What I'm getting at is that on Scadrial, the essence mark that she used to change herself into an Elantrian would not have needed the unkeyed door. So I would argue that she did use the unkeyed door to do the magic of the Elantrian stuff.
I'd have to go back and read the chapters because I'm not disagreeing with you entirely. I would
Yeah.
need to go back and reread to refresh myself. But if I remember correctly, the door is drained while she is transforming.
I
But
believe
it
she uses it while as an Elantrian, and if I'm pulling up the Copper Mine correctly, it's on chapter 54.
it could be
We're
that
finding the
she's
chapter.
kind of absorbing the power is kind of what I was
It's that
thinking
is also an
as.
option. As I said, I'm not entirely saying I'm correct. I would have to go back and reread the chapter or the section because I could entirely be wrong
Because
on
uh,
exactly what's going on there.
She
as
transforms into the Elantrian, then takes the door.
Okay,
mm,
so I was incorrect then. So
Doesn't
then
Wit
what I would
use
do
Elantrian magic without unkeyed door and Tress?
so we don't know about Tress because I don't think we saw any unkeyed door being used.
no, we just saw both her and
Okay.
Wit or
Okay,
Hoyd
just
using.
Right.
You
We
found
got
it,
it, Dragon.
Dragon?
I found the piece of how she uses the door. Okay, so she popped off the top of the jar of investiture, then dipped her stamp into that light and used it on the wall, making so this is to make the door for Marisi to go through. Okay, so she uses the investiture on the stamp as her stamp instead of just the organic ink, right?
Because we know the ink is an invested liquid.
Right. But so this is the stamp that she uses to create a door that she uses previously that only ever sticks around for a few seconds. But with the door, it sticks around as a door for like a physical door, not like a capital D-O-R,
Right,
but
right,
like a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
D-O-O-R for Marisi to go through. So it creates almost a more permanent lasting effect on the stamp initially, right? And then we flip and um she says she'll change personalities, and then all she does is then
She stamps herself at
it
the end
just
of
says
chapter
Moonlight
53,
pressed the stamp down on her own wrist.
and
It
then
doesn't
54.
necessarily say if she dipped again, but it already has talked about her dipping stamps inside of the door. So likelihood is she is like having to use the door as like the ink.
And in 54, she's picking it by the handful and swallowing it.
Yeah. So then she then
Jeez.
goes around. Moonlight took the entire so unlike Twin Soul, who had tapped the pure investiture like a keg, drawing it forth like as slowly as he needed it, Moonlight took the entire jug in one metaphoric slurp, sticking her hand into it and drawing it in her hair. And then it talking about her like her transformation itself. So she uses the door to power her transformation itself.
I
She
think
sticks
the
her hand into
doors.
the door, and then she starts to transform.
I
She
think that's
inks the
more so
stamp.
the Elantrian part activating, not necessarily the stamp. I think that's basically the
So
Shaod happening, and
she
that the
has to
door
use
is
the door
powering
to
that.
basically transform her body.
Does she have to trick it into thinking she's highly invested like an Elantrian?
Well, it may not even be that so much as the fact that we've seen Elantrians that leave Cell lose their Elantrian traits. So she may be using the door as a way to reactivate her Elantrian nature, even though she's no
Right.
longer connected to Cell.
Okay,
Well, and
okay.
we
This is
see. Hold on,
this
I
is
have one
all
more thought
a
to talk
long
about it.
way down the road. We don't need to get into
We
it.
see
Sorry,
Galadon
sorry.
break a sphere and use the stormlight, and he gains back his luminescence when he absorbs it and creates symbols in front of him inside of book 5, Where's the Wind and Truth?
So
So-
Gaetana became Ashravan for a moment. She has a special mark that we skipped over. She has an ant soul who does not actually exist.
What do you mean she doesn't actually exist?
Apparently her aunt and uncle don't actually exist.
Yeah,
Hmm.
she says that when she's talking to Gautona about her exit stamp.
Hmm.
Is that in chapter? Is that in these
No, that's a little
chapters?
bit later. That's a little
Yeah,
up and coming.
I was gonna say that's not in chapter 30 that she talks about
She
that.
comments on Ant Soul though, and that led me to
Okay.
checking the copper mine on Ant Soul.
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
she didn't
Perfect.
exist.
Perfect.
And she
Yes,
has talked about
that is
her
correct.
uncle quoting him
Mhm.
a couple of times.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like the parallel that Gaetana and Ashravan are like Elend in Hero of Ages, that once really morally good characters, but have now had to colden their hearts and harden it and become less of the idealists they were used to be. And okay, here's where we had the whole argument of art. And I did want to bring up, I think Brandon definitely thinks that it goes into what makes art that defines art based upon Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, because I think Brandon seems to imply that whilst the machine is not making art, the machine itself is art.
I have not considered the Yumi connection. That's pretty cool.
I hadn't
I
thought
guess
about that. I was thinking
it
more of
seems obvious now.
I was thinking more of like how Hoyd talks about like what is art, what makes great art, and the whole aspect of a novelty. It's really about people's perception of what they see and how they believe it, rather than the fact that it itself is great art, simply by the fact that someone on two sides of the opposite world can create the exact same incredible thing, but we don't think something is incredible if it doesn't have a novelty, which is what Alex kind of brought up.
Mhm.
So
And
Well, and I
piggybacking
think that
of my name being brought up, I thought about I thought about Yumi because they call chopsticks maipon sticks in Yumi.
Oh.
Well, and I think that actually kind of harkens back to the fact that the cognitive realm is built on people's perception of things. Like something's status in the reason that the entire wall is considered one wall instead of individual blocks or individual grains of stone is because people view it as a wall. And
Mm.
so I think that goes back to the fact that something might be art because enough people consider it art to actually change its nature in the cognitive realm.
Wait,
Whoa.
Yeah.
sorry, going back to what Alex just said about the MyPod sticks.
Yeah, I'm like stuck on
Oh,
this
yeah.
too. Like,
Sorry,
A genuine
also,
Cosmere connection.
I think as
Well,
well
because
in
in
Well, isn't that
Treadstone,
in
wait. Can I
no,
finish my
no.
thought real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah. Sorry.
In
let the woman speak?
in
Yes.
Elantris, I think they also mention using
Mhm.
my pawn sticks.
They do.
Yeah, I just
I
got
think
that, and I just realized that.
I think in
Yeah.
Yumi though, isn't that only in Design's noodle shop though? So couldn't they have actually gotten real Maipon sticks or designed them after Maipon sticks?
Designed, but
But
Designed.
Well, because we do see those connections in some of the other short stories, because in Tress they refer to death as Iron Eyes.
yes.
And
And
so
I believe
like we do start seeing these connections spawned from a single world transferring to other ones.
oh yeah, and isn't someone in Lost Metal eating chowta at one
Yes.
point?
yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
yes.
We should make a podcast where we call these out.
Yeah, like
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of them that I've caught because
There's a lot of these
like these
wild
random
connections.
inner webbing, like things sticking to each other throughout the course of the book series.
all
What
right,
would we
all
call
right.
that?
While you applaud yourself for your podcast name, I'm gonna say Sanderson has been asked about the MyPon sticks and if they're the same. Ultimately, it comes down to it was yeah, they're similar. They're not the exact same. Hoyt is telling the story So it's a translation of what they would actually be called on Komashi.
Oh, interesting.
So he just didn't want to say chopsticks, I guess.
Which
That's what I'm figuring.
Yumi
Is a
is
toy.
told to a crowd of people, which is told to people on Roshar. And so the
Or a
fact that
person
the
from Roshar.
or a person from Roshar. So the fact that the analogy is to people to an individual that has like more of a Rosharan belief that he uses, that the translation comes across as Mypon sticks.
Was that a WAP you just searched? Or did you just have that information?
Was that
Who,
a word
me?
of Brandon?
Yeah,
Yes,
you.
Alex.
I had all of that information in my head, but it should be
Okay.
a word of Brandon for the Mypon connection.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Typically, whenever we pull up a WAP, we try to link it to a specific person.
Oh,
But if it's
okay.
just knowledge, credit to
If
you.
it's knowledge that you have acquired, then you're good.
Let us all
Yes.
marvel at your massive brain.
Anything else for chapter 30?
At what
Goodness
point,
knows
and
we
this
could.
might be, I know this might be skipping ahead because I don't remember exactly what day it was. Um, isn't there a day where she actually changes the dimensions of the room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Is
That's
that
up
one of
and
the
coming.
days we covered, or is that
58.
okay? That's still
58,
that's
coming.
upcoming.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay,
But
never mind.
But yes, that is one of the days that we covered. If you wanna,
I mean, is
That's
there
what
anything in
was
42 we want to call out? I mean, that's just her creating the biography, um, and basically saying, I want to actually do this. I want to make the Emperor's soul.
That was just a bunch of promises in progress, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Then on 58, yes, she does tear down a wall and connect it to another adjacent building.
Well,
adjacent
no,
Closet.
room.
that's not how it worked.
Yeah.
It's that she changed where the wall was placed in its history. She didn't break it down or anything.
Which
Just-
But it
is,
sounds cool.
She doesn't Kool-Aid man
Sounds
that shit.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
actually it's fascinating that she can affect something on. It makes it truly terrifying how much a soul stamp could actually accomplish if powered by enough investiture.
Imagine.
Or in the sorry.
Go ahead.
Or in the hands of a person who thinks like Shy does.
Right, exactly. Like, because I'm just thinking you could literally rewrite someone's entire history just long enough to make them vulnerable. It like, because I'm just thinking of a. I wonder if powered by enough investiture, yeah, I assume it would be able to, in much the same way soul casting can. If powered by enough investiture, it probably could still affect somebody highly invested if you just pump enough power into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Dragon has to leave us right now.
And
Hi,
he will
Dragon.
be
Okay,
going
okay.
some
Okay.
other
Okay.
day.
I gotta slip out. Sorry, guys. Nice meeting you too.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you as well.
Nighty night.
Okay.
Oh yes, I
Yeah,
mean
now that he's gone, let's talk shit about him.
like we always do.
Yeah.
damn.
No, we're kidding.
Yeah, we're kidding. He and Kay are the smartest ones on this show. We need them.
Yeah, we need them.
Yeah. Isn't forging the entire room like one thing at a time just an utter waste of soulstone though?
Well, but she's forging individual objects within the room.
Yeah, but like each
She's-
object needs its own soul stamp, and I'm imagining
Yes,
soul stamp
because-
soulstone is like a rare mineral.
Yeah, but
It's
they're
gotta-
providing it to her for free.
They're providing
Yeah,
it
they are
And
the
in
empire.
abundance.
Like,
it
burning
probably
money.
they
gets
are the head of the
redeveloped.
empire. Like,
You're starting to sound a little bit like Frava.
It's a renewable resource. It's got to be renewable.
We know nothing on
some level.
soulstones. At one point, I was even thinking, what if it's like asteroid or space rock?
Well, it's got very weird properties, right? Because you can carve it, right, pretty easily, and then when it's heated, it becomes unscratchable, right? Is that about what it was?
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's asteroid because it does seem to be inherently tied to Stellian magic of some sort. So it'd have had to have been there for a while to be like connected to the investiture of the planet.
Possibly.
And I think it is probably, if I had to put words in Brandon's mouth, which I do a lot, it would be
Make him say subscribe to Cosmere Connections.
I'll try. I'll try my best. No promises. So I think it would be cool if it was a mineral that had investiture bleeding through from the cognitive realm. Just go with it. Don't question how that happens, other than like deep in the planet.
Well, wouldn't that almost be something like Ruin's essence being
Yes.
regrown in the pits of Half-Sin?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And then when heat is applied, which let's just boil it down, energy is applied, it changes the structure of the crystal of the mineral, making it much more resistant to being scratched. So I don't know any minerals off the top of my head that have those properties.
It goes
But
from like soapstone to quartz. I
yeah,
forget.
I can ask some of the geology people I work with.
I was gonna say, if only we had a geologist.
I know.
Or
If only I
ChatGPT.
could stamp myself to study geology instead of biology.
There you go.
That would have come in real handy.
See,
for
that's the stories I want. I want like a high school story where people are just utterly abusing the magic to like cheat their way through schools. It's like,
Just take it long
honestly,
enough to pass a test.
exactly, right? Just I studied for the past few weeks. Full knowledge of anything on the exam. Like
I think
how
it
did
would
the
require more work to create the soul stamp to do that than it would have been to
I
just study
know,
for
but
the
like,
test.
oh,
Because you
tell
still
me
Okay, but I
kids
can
wouldn't
still.
try.
I have seen people that
you
in
still
their.
have to know the information to make the soul stamp to have you learn the information.
Yeah. But like imagine like how fun of a story it would be like to have like what ways are they trying to prevent it? Like what kind of teachers are there trying to catch it? And like
The anti-cheating. I mean, to be fair, you could just probably coat the room in aluminum.
Hmm.
ooh, would that
It's
negate
actually
the
that's
soul stamp?
that's actually a curious question. Does the stamp does the application of the stamp provide a steady stream of investiture for as long as it is applied, or does it is it a permanent like if you went into a room coated with aluminum with a soul stamp
So,
on, would the soul stamp cease to function?
so here's the thing with that. So we know that Shy's prison that she was in at the beginning of this book was wrapped in aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
But she was fairly confident that she would still be able um forge the stones in
That's
her
true.
room and the other things in her little room. She wouldn't be able to forge the aluminum, but she would have been able to forge the other things.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I
So
gotta
that
side with
implies
Kay
that
on
it's
that.
a single investiture usage that affects the soul, and then the soul pushes back.
Hmm.
So
I wonder if like an aluminum knife or something would have a better time prying off the soul stamps though.
I mean, it's pretty easy to pry off a soul stamp
Yeah, the
anyway.
whole point of it is that the soul stone is easy to carve.
Yeah.
I
No,
do have
No,
a
I'm
something.
soul
saying like
stamp. Once
like
something has been
After it
stamped.
had been applied.
Yeah,
yes.
Hmm.
but it's
For
pretty
like
easy already to break the soul stamp. Like we see Shy do it. She just takes the chisel and like bangs it.
But like on
Um,
the matter of things getting harder with when heat is applied, um, I know some metals do this, so I went to look it up, and I guess copper is like the big one that gets harder as heat is applied,
hmm.
which is like just reading into it. It says the bonds between metal atoms typically the connection between them gets sloppier as heat is applied, but copper is a little bit different. It actually kind of molds together. So I don't know. Maybe it's kind of cool if you think about like when energy is applied to the soul stone, it strengthens connection.
The more you know.
Which kind of makes sense for what it does.
I like that. Somebody get
Um,
this to Sanderson ASAP.
So you can write another Hugo Award winner.
Yes.
Still going. Shy creates Bluetooth, and
I'm glad you
which day
explained
are
that
we on?
earlier, or I'd be so confused.
This is me going through the notes still. Shy creates Bluetooth, and about pretty much it for 58.
Cool.
And 59 is she just gets her book back.
Yeah. Oh, the Blood Sealer. So I don't remember specifically, but the Blood Sealer is early because of letters from his lover.
Yes.
That's right.
So the days when he gets a letter, he shows up early. The days that he doesn't get a letter, he goes out drinking and that night, and so he shows up late the next morning.
Mhm. See, all I gotta do is bring up a detail, and Kay will just go into detail.
That means the blood sealer's an alcoholic.
Yeah, pretty
Yes.
much.
Yeah.
It's all metaphorical.
Yeah, that's
Blood
all I got.
sealing, alcoholism. It's all connected.
What's the blood sealing a metaphor for?
I don't know. You ever just say something and you're like, in your head, it makes sense, and then you say it out loud and you're like, wait, I didn't really think this through at all, did I?
So if aeons are code, if soul stamps are mods, then blood sealing is oh shoot.
It's a
what did-
mod because it's still a
No, it's more like a limiter. It's shoot, what were the terms?
Like a parameter?
No, there was a term we had back in high school for them. I can't remember what it was. Profile? Profile? It was something they put on like iPads to keep them restricted. Restrictions?
parental
Yeah, but like
controls.
parental controls,
A debuff?
guess. I don't know.
Debuff.
I guess restrictions seem to be more so.
Hmm.
I don't know. We get very little on blood sealing.
Don't we also get?
Yeah.
Doesn't he also use the blood sealing on whatever attacks Shy at the end?
So yeah, so that's how his like pets are created is through blood sealing, which are
Right.
like the like bone creatures and stuff that attack Shy, and he's able to use her blood to like track her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more like a virus or some sort of.
Uninstaller.
Almost like cookies in the way there, where a lot of sites will use cookies to like track your activity and things like that.
Uh-huh. Shoot. So it's more like shoot, cookie. It's like a. I'm just gonna come up with all the computer science parallels now for the rest of this, for the next episode and a half, I guess.
I guess blood sealing would almost be like malware in a way.
Malware, that's the word I was looking for.
Which is very similar to how alcohol poisons your brain and then eventually you become dependent on it. That's the connection I was making before.
Yeah.
I should get a Hugo.
What they award Hugos for.
I was
I
fully
was just handing them
expecting.
out, right?
Here's a question that I have for everyone. Which of the splinters do you think the different Elantrian magic is tied to? Because we know at least in Elantris, I believe it's stated that Elantris magic is closer to devotion, where the tattoos of the monks or whatever are closer to
Decor.
dominion.
The decor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, what do we think of for both soul stamps and blood sealing?
I think maybe it's blood sealing's definitely more dominion-y.
Well, I think it's a mix. I think it's more so a mix than anything.
And like I had commented when we did Elantris, which was before Wind and Truth, that I imagined like, what if the investiture has been gaining a sentience after all these years? And
Yeah,
with
which we do
honor,
see definitely. And actually, I'm kind of curious because we never really get it, and I don't know if we ever will, but I'm curious what the Celian magic was like before Dominion and Devotion were splintered.
We will never know.
No, we won't.
So
Oh, unless Brandon writes some sort of, and I hope he will. I would love for him to write a
I mean,
like an encyclopedia
we might learn
of
it in the
of
next Elantris books.
we might,
Mm.
yeah. I just even if we don't, I would love for him to write some sort of like an encyclopedia style book that details a lot of the stuff that we never actually discover through reading the books.
Yeah, have some kind of encyclopedia.
Hmm.
That'd be kind of cool.
That'll be what he releases after his death.
And we'll
We
all
j-
be dead already, so we don't get to enjoy it.
we just
True.
get access to the like Wikipedia type site that he has that he stores all of his notes.
His
I could
5
see him.
a.m. ramblings when he wakes up and has a brand new idea.
Well, he's already awake at 5 a.m. because he doesn't sleep during the night.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see him doing it as a Kickstarter. Like, do you guys just want a textbook?
Yes,
yes.
yes, please.
I
Because
mean,
I
that's
have
kind
definitely
of
tried to
that's
come up
kind
with
of the
my own
point of
magic systems.
the Cosmere RPG, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
True.
fair.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to
Yes.
say about these chapters?
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good.
Well, that's gonna just about cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. This has been Cosmere Connections, joined by the Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere, and we hope to see you next time.
Bye.
Peace out.
For those that are staying here and aren't wandering off, you're welcome to Alex. But I played the Mistborn deck building game last night
Oh, it's
with
so
some
much
friends.
fun.
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. I'm
So,
like, I need to play it again,
oh yeah,
like
it
right
is.
now.
It is so much. So I bought it at Dragonsteel.
My brother
At
bought a Dragonsteel for me for
I bought it
Christmas.
at I bought it at Dragonsteel, but it didn't fit in my bag, so I asked
Oh
my
no!
dad to put it in his bag, and
Yeah.
he decided to wrap it up for me for Christmas so that
Aw.
I was unwrapping it. I was like, Dad, I was like, why did you put your name on this? You didn't give me this gift. This is my gift for myself. I spent my own money
What
on
kind of
this.
re-gifting bullcrap is this?
But so we played it at
That's awesome.
Christmas a bunch.
Oh, that's so cool. I finally just cracked it open. I got it for Christmas, but I like finally cracked it open. I've just been so busy. But yeah, man, I cracked that open and played it with a couple friends. We got four of us in there, and then one of the guys had to leave early, so then there's three of us finishing it off. But I will say I won
Oh, very
because
nice.
mainly because of Breeze.
Oh, yeah,
What
Breeze
what
is a
what
good
You're talking
Mistborn
about the
deck
Mistborn
building
deck
game.
building
yeah.
game.
Oh, I need
So
to get that.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
you can either win by,
So
so we were
did
doing
you have
competitive, so you can win either by killing each other.
who
The
was
Vin
your
way.
main
I was Vin.
you were Vin? Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I was Vin, and then I like focused mo almost exclusively on like, so I got a couple steel just by because that's what she had, like steel trainings and stuff. I got one more steel, I think, and then I focused mainly on getting copper. I got copper, 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 copper. Or no, sorry, not copper, brass. I just did brass basically. Lots and
Mhm.
lots of brass, which is I got breeze, I got just like another random soother, I got like all these abilities which all affects like the so for those that don't know it as like okay is there's so you can either win basically by killing each other or by getting and so you can focus around like dealing more damage or getting more health. You can focus on like affecting other people's cards and gathering a bunch of money, which lets you buy more like cards to build up your deck. And then but the other way to win is to get. There's like 3 missions. So like ours was, I think, like the caverns. You have to like populate the caverns, and so it's like a mission, and you get like mission points, and you have to be the first person to win all 3 missions in order to win the game without killing everyone else, and just stabbing them basically.
And for
Stab,
clarification,
stab, stab, stab,
you
stab.
don't have to be the first person to win a mission. You just have to be the
Oh,
first
really?
person to win all three. Yes.
Oh, okay. I see. Everyone else was like, "No, you have." We I guess we read the rules on because we said we thought it had to be the first person on each
So
mission.
that was
So I
how
made sure I was the first person on each one, and that's how I won.
So that was how I had read it originally as well, but so my sister's fiance is a huge board game nerd. Um,
Mhm.
so he was the one who was like, no, 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 that's not what it's saying. He was like, because he's a huge board game person and he
Yeah,
like
yeah.
plays a shit ton of board games. He's also kind of a rule Nazi with it, so it's like, but it was fine.
Good and the
Um,
bad.
so it was fine, but yeah, he
Oh,
was the
okay.
one who was able to
I'll I'll
yeah,
read through that rule again. I'll talk to my friend about it.
yeah,
But
I
yeah,
would
we were like, oh, you have to be the first person. So I like push really hard. But Breeze gave me, I think it's like something like 12 mission points per mission. And Breeze himself gave me like 12 mission points by himself because he
yeah,
gives you two every round that you use him. Anyway, and so I was just like him, and I had another one, and I was just getting like 5 mission points every round.
yeah.
And like I was just pushing up,
We
and everyone.
yeah,
Anyway,
we
but then
ended up
my it's
playing
so
it
fun.
twice
Oh, nice.
over Christmas, and my sister won both times. I was like,
Oh my God.
dude, I was like, she didn't even play the same character both times. First, she played Sean Alariel,
Yeah,
um,
oh nice.
Shan, and then the second time she played as Kelsier. Um, but she was
Nice.
able to win both times, and I was like,
Nice.
dude, what the heck?
My
And
friend
she
was
won by
Marsh, and he
killing
got.
us. She
Oh,
won by
he
killing
won.
us
Oh
both times.
no, that's
Everyone.
crazy. Yeah, my friend was Marsh, and he got both Ruin, the card Ruin, and the card Harmony, or Balance, technically
Yeah,
is what they call it.
yeah.
The card Balance. But it's the symbol of Ruin, and it's the symbol of like Ruin and the symbol of Harmony on the cards, and they're like insanely effective cards, crazy powerful. And so he got both. He bought both cards, and anyway, and then Preservation also showed up, and the other guy got them, and so they were like, they both got those cards, and so they're dealing out like 8 to 10 damage in a round.
Oh yeah, no.
It was
So
insane.
I I kept the target on me a couple times because I was dealing a crap ton. So I think I dealt like 8 or 10 damage to everyone at one point.
Yeah,
It's like just like dealing like a crap ton of damage to everyone just because, it's you can.
yeah. Such a fun game. So if ever whoever ends up flying out for, or I'm assuming, I guess Alex and Griff, are either of you Utah peoples, or did you guys
We're
fly out
both in
for
Texas.
Nexus? Okay,
Oh yeah, we just fly out for Nexus.
fly out for Nexus. So yeah, whoever ends up flying out for Nexus this next time, we can we should put together something. And I know they technically had it in their game room last time, but we should just like go and play some the Mistborn deck building game with
That would be
Well,
fun.
whoever's
yeah.
there, because that would be so fun.
I like the game room, but it's just at least I find it like I don't want to like step away from doing other things to like play games in the game room personally.
But I did it for stamps,
Yeah.
so
I did it for stamps. Nexus 2024.
Pretty much.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it'll be
Alright, well,
interesting to see what they do for the event next time.
yeah.
I know they've talked about doing stamps as like is going to be something that they do again, but it might be a little bit before they do it again.
I was gonna
So
say, have you guys gone to Nexus before?
Yeah, we both attended, well, we attended 2022 and then we hosted something, or we had our first like table and everything on 2023, and then we did it again this year for 2024.
Nice. Awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of stamps, you guys want to finish this off?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll record it on my end too, but send me what you got. That'd be great. That's the audio levels. That all sounds great.
Cool.
I don't mean to like say we don't need it, but like just we've had a lot of issues.
We've had
these past-
disasters in the past, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
One of our
Recording in progress.
half of one of our Wind and Truth episodes got completely erased.
So now it's just Wind and Tra.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I did my best, okay?
Don't
I've
blame
been
you,
there.
Swiggity. I blame me.
accidentally lost things before. Our first episode of, we did a review of Warbreaker, and then we did a breakdown of the magic system. And in the magic system episode, we referred back to the no, we did the magic and then we did the review. And in the review, we referenced the magic, and I never posted the magic because I lost it. It's a very confusing episode. We're like, well, we just explained the magic and why Warbreaker would be a great musical, and we didn't.
Okay.